EDG first picking that LeBlanc.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised by this at all. Like, I'm literally looking at my sheet. Everything that I was kind of looking towards, like the Rise, Trundle, Ziggs, kind of been big picks across the board for EDG, especially the Trundle. Missing is the best Trundle that we have in the league. And across the board, WE kind of banning away a lot of those picks that have gone from the past. But this is very quick. So, Aphelios, Thresh already locked in. Aphelios was a ban that WE went for a lot against EDG in their previous series. So, this feels more like a takeaway than anything else. Because generally, we see them prioritize a jungler in this first rotation for WE. So, trying to take that off the board. Viper going back towards the Varus, which can do relatively well against this Aphelios after he gets kind of that first back, level 5, level 6 underneath his belt. And I think you just lock in a jungler here, something like that Xin, which has been such a prominent pick for so much of this playoffs. Or, okay, Jiejie's going to go back towards the Olaf. So Jiejie's Olaf right now has a 100% win rate and a 36 KDA.
Whew. Man knows his Olaf. That's all I'm saying. Knows how to do that. And honestly, it's a great facilitator with the LeBlanc. You get something that can be early, you get something that can kind of go for those skirmishes, and with the Viego locked in now with the side of WE, we are seeing basically WE saying, look, we're going to go for a big old bot side scaling, we do safety, we got the Thresh, the Aphelios, and they're getting that skirmishing power as well with the Viego.
One of the big things that I'm seeing here, though, is like EDG now have the opportunity to ban away Lissandra, things that can do well against this LeBlanc, setting up Scout for success. And when you've got this crazy strong mid-jungle 2v2, you can start to look for these invades, especially an Olaf into something like the Viego. If that is going towards Beishang in the jungle, it makes it really difficult for you to actually withstand a lot of that early aggression. So honestly, I think for WE, I like that they're banning away the supports, but I'd love to see them lock in something like the Kennen, like a Jayce for Breathe, guaranteed topside priority to try and help facilitate and kind of keep that mid-jungle 2v2 a little bit more stable.
We'll see, we are going to see the Set and Leona. Funny enough, actually, we did see Set being banned by WE quite a lot in the previous series. They banned it almost exclusively against OMG and against RA. The only difference in the RA series was that they ended up taking it in the fifth and final game. They banned it 4 times and then picked it themselves. So something they're very clearly not comfortable playing against. They feel like it facilitates the enemy team far too much. Twisted Fate, Lissandra, 2 things you talked about, be able to try and set up Scout in that mid lane, banned away now. So Scout, honestly, right now, I feel there's very few champions right now that would do exceptionally well into this, and you're being pigeonholed into that Syndra here from TWE.
Yeah, and we've seen it's kind of been a bit of a mixed bag for the Syndra right now. She's had some times where she's able to neutralize the matchup, other times with a little bit of that jungle pressure, you can really set up this LeBlanc for success. And we've already said EDG's mid-jungle 2v2 is so damn strong, so Shank's definitely going to have his work cut out here to try and avoid a lot of that early pressure from Edward Gaming. For Flandre, though, I feel like you go towards the Kennen here. Super strong blind pick, does really well against a lot of the kind of the shorter range that we're seeing from the likes of the Aphelios, from that from the from the Viego as well.
I was going to say, well, in fairness, Viego and Tien are pretty synonymous with each other. Yeah, pretty
synonymous. But then looking across, though, we're actually going to get the Jayce. So still trying to prioritize that, like, heavy priority top lane for Flandre. And again, this is about facilitating that shove, being able to allow yourself as EDG, if you wanted to play heavily through this top side and look for these invades.
Well, they lock in the Braum for a little bit of extra safety, and they've got themselves that long-distance poke. So you're looking at basically a pretty decent amount of poke coming in from the sides now. You've got LeBlanc who are able to kind of dip in, dip out. You've got Jayce, Varus, and a lot of just safety from the oncoming engagements that might be coming in from WE here for the side of EDG. And for WE, you've got yourself an opportunity now. Do you throw that Beishang? Yes, you do. You get Beishang onto the Viego and Lucian into that top side. So that top side looking explosive, Dagda.
I love that they're leaving this counter pick for Breathe. It's something that we've seen pretty consistently from WE throughout the playoffs, and it's going to pay dividends here. If you're able to control this top lane matchup against Flandre, you stop this Jayce from snowballing, you end up with this crazy strong lane that you can now play around. And again, we were saying, look, EDG control the top half of the map. Well, this Lucian's going to make things a little bit easier where he can bully at the Jayce, but certainly if we're looking towards like Rift Heralds and stuff like this, it'll help out quite a lot where you can have the Syndra and the Viego enable.
We shall wait no longer, Dagda. We are jumping into game 1, EDG versus WE in the losers final. Winner goes to the final next Thursday. Loser has to wait and see all the rest of the results to figure out their fate. And right now, Oh, sorry, excuse me. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's been 2 years since EDG have made that playoff. 3 years since WE have made that finals. Like, this is monumentous for both of these organizations. As you said, like, legacy organizations. So to get back to those finals would mean so much for both teams.
Absolutely. I think two of the oldest, if not, the oldest with WE organizations in the LPL. You've got yourself a lot of legacy and veterancy with EDG. And as I said, WE going with a much more fresh green lineup. Someone that's really, a team of players that have really shown their own, come in absolutely swinging. And this is an opportunity now for both these sides to prove that they are deserving of these accolades that we've been giving them as we wait to see if there are any early game skirmishes. I'm actually curious to see as well. Shanks decided to go with the Doran's Ring instead of the Corrupting Pot, so he's not looking to push, shove, and just go back. He's looking to try and sustain a little bit longer.
Yeah, it does help in the burst scenario here in that mid lane, especially when you end up with the electrocute matchup. Like, the whole idea of this is that you're trying to look for these quick trades, match the early pressure coming through from the LeBlanc. Now, it does mean that you actually end up, as you said, like, running out of health when you keep going for these trades. So Shanks will need to go for the reset, even though he's got these biscuits coming through. Certainly just not having as much health or as much mana, gonna mean that Scout eventually will be able to just whittle the health bar of Shanks down and get control in that matchup. But I think the bigger one is going to be looking to see how these junglers interact with that, because I feel like if you can get Jiejie involved early, you can set yourself up for successes. Missing, nice hook.
Nice hook, good damage. Meiko going to be forced to flash here as you cannot go up against those two guns of Elk, and that's a great little trade in the bot side. Before that, we did also see Shanks getting rid of the duplicate clone off of Scout as well, so nicely done. Does land the stun again, and Scout's getting punished right now in these early levels.
Yeah, I mean, good thing you went with the corrupting potion, hey? But I actually noticed that Scout hasn't. I don't know if he took the biscuits. I didn't see a pop up for himself. Maybe he has, but certainly needs to pop that early. So you're getting the value here from Shanks off that early Doran's Ring, the extra AP, being able to land it. And now it's actually Scout that has to go for the quick reset. Shanks can push in this wave, look to reset himself, doesn't even have to burn the TP. So Shanks just bullying the early game on this Syndra.
Doing very, very well, and getting that shove in as well is going to be so nice for him to get that early reset, get himself back into the lane. Of course, you see him there picking up his items, got himself a tier, a little bit of sustain, a ward to keep him nice and safe. Jiejie, though, going to go and pop down a ward. Actually curious to know if that ward is actually in the bush or not. Might just be on the edge of it, but looking to see maybe he can go for this. Actually waiting for this bot lane to roam up. This is a bit dangerous now for this Olaf. There will be 3 people here. I think he's got to give this one up.
Yeah, especially with Syndra having TP back to the mid lane, Jiejie won't be able to get any. It's a bit greedy from Jiejie. He went for a full clear rather than going for the more traditional kind of like 5 camps into your scuttle, then go over towards your Krugs. It means that Missing and Elk got that full push in bot lane, and he ends up missing out. So Jiejie falling that little bit behind, and I think this is going to say a lot for EDG as well, because this is a very different style than we have expected from EDG. We talked about EDG playing heavily down towards this bottom side of the map. Well, Shanks.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
No, he's all good. But yeah, we've traditionally seen EDG play down towards the bottom side of the map. When you have this setup, you're going to be looking for EDG to play more heavily through that top side. Look for these skirmishes with Flandre and Scout. So this is actually the style that they struggled to play against WE in their last playoff series. So I'm curious to see now if EDG have kind of righted the wrongs that we saw from that last series.
Well, Breed obviously getting the push in this top side. Haven't actually seen as much explosiveness as I anticipated from this top end, but nonetheless, should be pretty Lucian favorite. We actually didn't really get to talk about that matchup, so I'm curious to see your thoughts about what Jayce and Lucian is and how either side. Actually, might have stopped myself, so we're going to see a flash forward. Elk going to get themselves to Gravitum down. They get the hook down, and that's going to be a dead old Meiko. First blood going over to Team WE.
Great punish from WE. Like, just saying, hey, look, Meiko had to burn his flash on that level 1 because he took that step too far forward. Let's get down here. Let's make sure that we punish that and set ourselves up for success. And now suddenly Elk and Missing gaining a ton of control on this bottom side. And when you end up with an Aphelios having all this control, he can start to whittle away at those turret plates. And if you ever try to move members up as EDG, Severum Crescendum can rip through these turret plates and make sure that that Rift Herald play ends up meaning nothing for EDG.
Yeah, we've seen now Shanks in that mid lane. It's going to take a bit of a trade, but should be able to get himself back out, no issues. Now TP coming in onto Jiejie. Jiejie might be forced to flash away here if he's not careful. We're going to see Breed going in straight away. Not quite able to get the damage they wanted, but they will shave a lot of the chickens.
Yeah, I mean, look, Breathe was going to be TPing back top anyway, so just TPs to try and help out Beishang there, so giving a little bit of support. But this is what we're talking about, right? Like, EDG, you've got this crazy strong top side. Look for these invades. Make it uncomfortable for Beishang. Now, they will be dissuaded from going towards this top lane dive off of the wave the Flandre pushed in, but we're starting to see EDG getting the cogs turning in their favor.
Starting to see if they can find any sort of an advantage, as you say, as we now see Scout kind of pushing forward. We are going to see the Missing getting his recall stopped, so nicely done here by Meiko. Supportal combat happening very nicely, and I'm going to go back to my original point, as if we didn't really get to talk about it that much, but the Jayce versus the Lucian top lane. How do you see this one end up going? Does it need jungle intervention, or is it very much as a farm fest until you start moving to the rest of the lanes?
It's actually a big win for Lucian if you're left on an island, because Lucian has the ability to dodge away from the accelerated shock blast thanks to his E, and the culling does so much more damage from a longer range than Jayce can deal with.
Oh, Viper will get stunned, but good hail of arrows does stop momentum here for WE. 1,000 gold behind because of it, but they aren't doing too badly at just, mitigating the bleeding. But in this bot side, I gotta say, 15 CS difference now for the Aphelios into the Varus on top of the assist they got as well. So definitely looking very, very positive for this Aphelios moving forward into this mid game.
Yeah, traditionally it's kind of a bit of an Aphelios favorite matchup, kind of level 2, level 3. Having that caliber means you can shove in, but because of Meiko actually losing out on that level 1 trade, he's had to play very scared underneath this tower. Now you got the kills going across as well. It's giving Elk and Missing a huge amount of comfort in this bottom lane, and it's kind of surprising to see because Viper and Meiko have been so consistently strong in this bottom lane. To be losing out so heavily is a rare occasion for the EDG squad.
Pretty damn rare, as we look to see exactly how they want to try and push this advantage. Scout's still taking a lot of punishment in this mid lane with blue buff onto Shanks as well. Scout's going to have to be very, very careful. That unleashed power damage is just so real at the first stages of the game. When you get that first level 6, level 7 mark, that is where you are the most vulnerable of getting absolutely obliterated by that. So he respects it, he backs up, and Bree's going to be able to dodge away from the accelerated shock blast like you just mentioned.
And now, shove in that top wave, you're going to get the resets for WE. The big question mark now is going to be that Rift Herald, right? You can already see Missing bringing the cavalry along because they want to make sure they can get these shoves in both of the solo lanes and then look towards that objective. Beishang being spotted out by Scout though, so they'll know that he's in the vicinity. And look at bot side, Elk, he's looking for the reset as well. We might get a full rotation here from WE towards this top half of the map.
And this is what EDG love to fight around. They love to get control around these areas and force enemy teams into bad skirmishes, into bad setups. But WE, they're not willing to let this one go just for free. Jiejie going to walk in, going to land the undertow onto Missing. Missing does not have his flash, so needs to be a little bit careful. There's the hook down, but Missing's just caught in no man's land, and he is dead. Now it's a 4v5 for the next 10 seconds.
And that's the power of that 1-2 punch coming through from Jiejie and Scout. You needed to get all your pieces in place from WE, but they go that step too far forward. And now EDG will get this Rift out. They can start to give this towards the LeBlanc in the mid lane and set themselves up for success.
Oh, it's a little bit of a fight brewing, though, as Team WE are hovering around the area. They don't want to give this one up for free, and they're peppering down these health bars. You can see L trying to go forward. Scout goes in. They land a Chain of Corruption on the Beishang, and that means there will be no smite fight on this one. But Breathe, jumping on the backside, kills off Meiko, but you've gone too far, son. You cannot keep going that deep. And now with the Unleashed Power, not going to be able to finish off anybody else. And with the arrows flying down, WE have to make a retreat. EDG find 3 at the end of it.
And WE just fighting the 4 versus 5. I'm not sure why they were trying to at that stage. Just give up that Rift Herald, move yourself elsewhere. See if you can get Elk to use the fact he has Crescendum to take some of those bot lane turret plates, but instead they give over more kills. And now you've got 2 kills on this LeBlanc. You can give the Rift Herald over to her as well, and suddenly LeBlanc can dominate that mid lane matchup. But we're going to see it here, right? Like, nice damage at least from Breed to go for the culling. But when you've got Chains of Corruption, when you've got the cooldowns coming through onto Scout, he just goes in, dashes in, picks off Beishang, picks off Breathe, and now you're in a hell of a lot of trouble as WE.
I think the big thing there was that, yes, it was a native 4v5, but Elk couldn't really join the fight. He was off to the back of the pit. He wasn't quite with his team, and it just became basically a 5v3 at that point. He was just so late to joining it. So EDG get themselves the Rift Herald. They equal up the gold again, and like you said, we'll be curious to see now where this Rift Herald goes. You can put it into Scout. Maybe if you want to try and get a kill, pop it into top side. There's so many options now available to EDG. And WE, they just need to hunker themselves down, calm down just a tiny bit. And Jiejie, he's spending an awful lot of time in this top side.
You're going to be seeing if he can get out to Breathe. Knows he's not spotted because of that control ward, and you're in trouble, Breathe.
Oh, I think he is. Undertow does land. We're going to see now the dash going to be able to come out. But, yep, Breed's going to use it to try and farm the wave. He knows he's dead. He knows there's no point in trying to fight it. So he's just trying to deny as much power onto that tower as he possibly can. EDG, you're starting to run through the gears. They're starting to pick up the pace. This is what we love from EDG. This is why we say them as such an incredibly scary team. When they dictate the pace, when they're the ones finding opportunities, they're the ones that are able to make the moves happen. Scout flashes away. Nicely done there. But WE trying to make another move on the other side of the map.
Yeah, and now EDG should be able to get this top lane turret, though. They know where Beishang is, and this will set themselves up with this nice early gold lead. So especially... Oh, hang on. We got TPs.
We got TPs coming in. It's going to be Beishang coming in off of that. Will land the flash stun as they go in on top of it. No Scout of the week just yet. TP going to be coming in from Scout, but Jiejie is already dead. This is going to be a 3v2 at best for EDG and Scout. Where are you going, buddy? He's already juked them out, but they put enough people around the place to say we know exactly where you're going to be. And now 3 quick kills back in the hands of WE means they are back right in this game.
Oh, God, it's a disaster from EDG. They try to counteract the play and it all falls apart. And I was about to say, look, I mean, this is going wonderfully for EDG, right? You get these kills onto Flandre. He's got that long range. You got Scout is looking good. They're going to be totally fine as long as they get the top half of the map in shape. But nice job from WE here. They realize, hey, Jiejie has no ultimate. We can burst him out. Flandre just hasn't reset. He doesn't have the damage right now to really be that big of a threat. And Scout just TPs into his own demise.
Yeah, I think Scout was hoping Olaf would last a little bit longer, and Flandre walking to the wrong side of the map basically knew he was always going to die. So now 3 kills back in favor of WE. They get themselves back on even Stevens, and we're going to go for the dragon.
No, Elk's dead.
Oh.
I don't know what happened to Elk.
Oh, you're right. He did have a die. Let's have a look at the replay.
There we go. Okay, he just got caught underneath the tower, question mark?
I guess it looks like they were going for a skirmish, and yeah, just took a little bit too much damage. They weren't even able to get the kill back onto Viper. So very curious about that one there, as Elk did die. I was like, I'm pretty sure they were 5-4 up a second ago, but Dragon does go over to WE. They get that first dragon for themselves. We are going to have either an Ocean or a Cloud Soul. And WE now try to see what they can do with this mid-game power. They're getting a couple of mythics going for them, and I'm curious to see if they can make something work with that.
Yeah, they're also getting a lot of pressure in this mid lane. The big factor that you're looking at EDG is this double range that's coming through from Scout and Flandre. So Flandre, if you can push in mid, can quickly rotate towards, push in top, quickly rotate mid, and use that double range to try and whittle down this turret. And I think that range is going to really come into a big factor in these team fights as well. Because as we saw at that Rift Herald fight, Elk has to constantly play catch up in these fights. And when you're looking at Viper, who's going to play from range and poke, Flandre is going to play from range and poke, and Scout, you don't want to be near his Elk. It means that you're now in a situation where you're not going to have these big moments for Elk to really set himself down in these fights. He'll be heavily reliant on missing Beishang, Scatter the Weeks from Shanks to set him up to close the gap onto EDG.
Well, we are going to see top side, Breathe and Beishang just taking away all of this vision. So Flandre wants to try and pick up the wave, but I think it'll be very, very difficult for him to do so. He's trying to see if he can get the auto attacks onto that ward, but not able to do so. And Beishang playing with the vision a little bit, saying, look, I know you know that I'm around, but where exactly? And now Beishang finding himself underneath this turret. He knows Flandre really, really wants this, but it's going to be hard for him to take it. Jiejie here just to escort his top laner to the minions.
Yeah, a lot of members from EDG congregating around this top side, so WE going to respect that, and we'll give a little bit of time for Elk in this mid lane to try and clear these out, pushing the wave, and just try and keep control. And since WE have managed to get this first dragon for themselves, they're under a little bit less pressure when it comes towards having to fight these early skirmishes.
Well, a little bit of a skirmish in the mid lane. The Unbreakable doing a good job of stopping most of that damage from Elk going down onto Meiko's health bar, and We are starting to hover around this top side because the Rift Herald is spawning again. It's going to be just about 16 minutes, or actually just spawn just there as it comes up. And now WE, they've got the rotations. They have Shanks in bot side, but no TP. So WE, they're first on the objective. And I think right now with the rotations coming in, EDG are just a little too late to the party.
Yeah, you can see the pings galore on that bottom side of the map. They want to pick off Shanks, but he's running for the hills. And I like this from WE, right? They're a little bit behind. Less play towards our strongest part of the map, which right now is breathed with this Gale Force. And managed to get that Rift Herald. They can use it to get that top lane turret. Meanwhile, EDG could try and trade on the bottom side of the map, but they're more interested in trying to protect this mid lane.
It's a very important lane to protect, especially if you want to try and keep that vision going in your favor. We do see the Moonlight Vigil come down, brings Scout to about half HP. The Rift Herald gets dropped immediately in the top side, so that's going to be tier 1 knockdown there. While that's been happening, you can see Viper on your mini-map in that bot side just pushing in the waves. Got Jiejie in support, so not feeling too unsafe as of the moment, but you're against the Rift Herald push here, buddy, and you're not really going to be able to gain a lot from this. That's going to be 2 turrets here now for WE. Just faster rotation, quicker on the buzzer here from Team WE.
Yeah, I think EDG kind of just messed up their lane assignments here. They're even going to get this mid lane turret. Like, you end up sticking Flandre and Scout both in the mid lane, which means no one's able to try and clear out that wave in the top side of the map. Viper's left on his own in the bottom lane, so he's still only whittling away at this turret. Like, EDG just not really getting people in the right state on the map to actually try and counter the push or even facilitate Viper on the shove and bot side.
Well, 3 for 1 in turret trade. I think that's a pretty good trade for Team WE as they now get themselves back on equal footing of the golds, and it's still a pretty even game. Actually, just looking at the items very, very quickly, we actually see Serpent's Fang as the first item there for Viper, so seeing if he can get a cheaper lethality item before he goes for his mythic or even his Manamune as such to get himself onto the board. And it's going to be a little bit difficult now for Viper to have a big impact now as he's waiting to try and finish up those big items.
Well, we'll have to see if he can. Dragon in 35 seconds, so there's going to be a scrap, I'm almost certain, going on here. Or at least WE will be putting their attention towards that, because you've already moved, you breathed down towards the bottom side. Elk going to be here as well, and you've got Shanks who's going to be catching that wave top with the teleport. But for EDG, looks like they aren't interested. They're going to try and see if they can extend this lead for Jiejie and potentially make a play on that top side towards Shanks.
Well, Flandre needs to run away. Beishang is here. They're going to have the Gale Force as well, forcing Flandre's flash out. Flandre just being bullied in this matchup, about 20 CS down. But now Shanks, he's going to have a little bit of his own taste of medicine as he goes in, trying to get trade back onto this one. Nice scatter of the week, but the undertow is just too good there. Jiejie picking that one up, and it will be a trade of turrets, tier 1 for tier 2.
Yeah, EDG have just gone, we don't care about dragons. This is not our win condition this game. We're trying to get as much gold into our pockets as possible, try and play at the map, but the problem is they're consistently being answered for it. Now Scout, trying to see if they can go towards this this net inhibitor turret, but yeah, they're going to back away. Dragon should still be there for WE. They've no vision for EDG onto what WE is up to, so they're forced to move away from that topside turret.
Yeah, they didn't know exactly what the plan was there. If WE were looking for teleport plays, if they were looking to try and get behind them. Very, very sketchy moment there, especially when you're that far extended. But let's have a look at the replay now on this top side. And this is just the power of the Olaf. Pop that Ragnarok. You can't disengage him.
Now, there's nothing you can do here, Shanks. You kind of just had to see the top lane turret and know that you're winning on the bottom side of the map. But unfortunately, thought he could clear out the wave a little bit faster, not able to do so. So now we're probably going to get this like shift across from Scout, move him into the bottom side of the map and continuously try and play with this LeBlanc. Like, the burst potential that you have from this LeBlanc is sky high right now, and especially when Baron is up on the map, you know the rest of WE will be trying to play top side, so try and buy this 1v1 potential for Scout on the bottom end of the map.
Well, that's 2 dragons. It is a 500 or 600 so gold lead for EDG. It's still very, very close in that regard. And I will say I am a little bit concerned for EDG in the sense of that we've seen Aphelios do it a million times. And this Aphelios is starting to ramp up. Has got the Immortal Shield Bow, working on towards the Collector now. And this is going to become a bit of an issue. And look at that CS difference. We were hyping up Viper all season, but Elk's actually just 40 or so CS ahead of him in this matchup. Really doing well.
Yeah, again, that mistake from Meiko in the early stage is really coming back to bite them. Now, don't have the best of wave clear here in the mid lane, so EDG tried to see if they can begin setting up these sieges while they're pushing out on those side lanes. You can see Scout, though, hovering in this mid lane, trying to see if maybe he can look for a quick dip in and burst someone out or poke someone out and continue that siege on the the outer turret here for EDG.
And with that Banshees as well for Scout, it's going to be so much safer for him to be able to get this poke down, jump in, see if he lands the chain or not. If he doesn't, no big deal. He backs up. Even with a Flay or a Hook handling him, he's not going to be in that much trouble. We now have Elk a little bit under the tower. Ooh, that was so close. He's going to have to reset now. They will defend it by Team WE, but they will not be able to do that for much longer if they keep taking trades like that.
Yeah, I think EDG are playing this really well. Shove out side lanes, then group in the mid. They know that their siege is just so much higher, right? We already talked about that big range discrepancy with the Jayce and also the Varus, but as well, like, Scout's ability to poke under turret, the lack of any substantial wave clear really on WE's side, apart from maybe like the culling from Breathe and then Shanks being able to offer what he can. But if you are not able to keep that under control, you can see EDG, like, they burst out so many members of WE underneath the structures.
And we're hitting a little bit of it's actually been a bit of a quiet game in terms of the action. It's very much been methodical of how things have gone. Weak side dies, you know, strong side gets a kill. That tends to be how this game has gone for me so far. But we are coming up to about 22 minutes, 2 minutes until the next dragon spawns. Where do you see these teams actually fighting? Where do we see them stop trading either side of the map, and where do we see them kind of come together in a big clash of 5v5?
I mean, EDG have to do it at this next dragon, right? Like, you do not want to give an Ocean Soul over to WE. Like, the whole thing we're talking about is the ability to poke, the ability to try and force WE away. An Ocean Soul would do so much work for them in that scenario. So certainly EDG going to be looking to try and get themselves towards that objective. And for WE, maybe you want to give one, maybe you want to look at trying to take a little bit more of the map in your favor as EDG look towards Dragon, but certainly you don't want to be giving more than one away. You want to be trying to use this as your win condition to stop what EDG's composition is trying to do.
Well, Scout knows the Shanks is roaming up here, and it's going to be a bit of a bad trade here for Shanks if he just get popped a little bit. There's these chains going down. Shanks, you flash, but there's nowhere for you to go, and oh, it feels so bad. The Unleashed Power was there just to try and keep him alive, and flash, boom, bring down the hammer or the axe if you're Olaf. Get yourself another kill, and sorry, I know it saved his life to use the Unleashed Power as a stun, but just seeing that go into a Banshee's hurt my soul.
Yeah, and I think it hurt his as well, but Beishang still looking.
Oh, they're going to get the tower mid, but there's the Moonlight Vigil with the Gravitum. As we can see now, Meiko just tanking up a lot of that damage, using that Unbreakable to great effect. No flash for Jiejie, but a great amount of poke. Beishang needs to be so careful, and now EDG, they're picking up the pace. They're the ones hunting. They're the ones that can smell blood in the water.
Yeah, oh, hang on.
Scout should be fine.
Yeah, and look, this is again where EDG are strongest, right? Free hitting underneath this turret. Now they can back away, look over towards the dragon. Now, Shanks is back up. Elk is low, so we'll probably need to look for the reset. So it looks like WE just going to give up this dragon at the moment and maybe look for the later on ones. But you can look at what's happening. EDG, full control, keep making sure they're in a good spot. And Scout, we said already, his burst potential sky high. We got to see the results of it right there.
And even flashes away from the power sphere, and then we can just see flash, pop, nothing you can do there for Shanks. Sadly for him, he had no flash available to him, but great move by Scout. And this is why we see such a high priority on this LeBlanc so often for LPL teams. It's such a powerful pick in those side lanes. If you can get that 1v1, if you can, just as we might see it here, Breathe, sensing someone was watching him, gonna back himself up and get himself back underneath the safety of his tower. But Scout is now a menace in this mid lane or any lane.
Oh, WE try to set up the brush. Meiko spots them on the sweeper. But I agree. I mean, this is the power of the LeBlanc. You have the ability to pop over waves, or over walls, so Breathe never has a chance to get his lane in order. Again, we're seeing Shanks with them spotting Scout on the bottom side, shoving in top side, so someone on EDG will have to go deal with that. But there's just so little time here for WE to actually get access to the map while Flandre is hitting, while Scout is out of vision.
You need to get control of your own jungle, then start to see if you can make some plays, because right now you are just walking blindly in and hoping that someone isn't there. You can even see now Shanks using his Q to try and scout out any potential threats in the brushes and see if he can maybe get himself further vision control. But right now, WE, they are 2,000 gold behind. They're looking for an option. They're looking for an opportunity to get back into this, and it feels like a lot of it's going to try and weigh on them trying to find that like odd number skirmish as they wait in a little killer bush here.
Yeah, and it's not even like you can just like sack one side of the map as WE, right, and try and play through two waves because, or sorry, through two lanes, because your waves get cleared out so effectively by Flandre, by Viper, hell, even Scout as well can just pop in because the Banshee's Veil. So it becomes really difficult for you to try and quickly access one side. Now, this is why they're looking for these kind of depth rush scenarios, because they're like, look, we need to find some way of closing the gap, look for a pick, otherwise we're just getting poked out.
And Elk's by himself, so he is not got any support for his team or from his team right now as he gets double distorted on. He's going to try and trade this one back. He has got himself the Infernum and the Crescendum. Good juke back here by Scout does mean that the Moonlight Vigil hits absolutely nothing. You see missing using the minions as a bit of a body blocker, and it's a bit of skirmishing happening, a bit of posturing from both sides, but WE, I feel, not too dissatisfied with the results so far.
Hell no. I mean, you've got Flandre who wasn't even there, so the fact you're winning out in these trades is phenomenal. Dragon was already taken by EDG, so them getting access to the bottom side doesn't really mean too much, unless they can shove in that wave and get a tier 2, but that kind of feels a bit of a ways off right now.
Well, Ragnarok had to be expelled as well by Jiejie. It's on a pretty short cooldown, so you can already see it's almost 3/4 of the way done with that at the moment, so going to be up pretty damn soon. He gets a reset off and gets himself back onto the map, and not really expecting either team to flip it at the Baron, so waiting for that Dragon to spawn in just over 2 minutes time, and this is going to be a bit of ping-ponging as we can see the Jayce, the Lucian off on the side lanes, the Syndra picking up a wave, the LeBlanc will pick up a wave, and then mid lane's just owned by the AD carries and supports.
Yeah, I mean, this has been the EDG way, right? When they get a lead, it's like, okay, cool, let's just play it slow and by the book. We look for dragons, we'll look to try and see if we can set ourselves up for success and forcing WE to try and fight us. Now, again, WE, they can give up this dragon. I'd nearly prefer to see them go, okay, we'll sack this, let's push in topside and see if we can take an inhibitor turret. Because if you can like start causing pressure on this topside, it feels like the best way to separate out like the double poke from Viper and Flandre. Stop Scout from being such a menace on his solo lane by himself. But we'll have to see if they decide to try and make that happen.
Well, it looks like they're trying to maybe not just focus on the dragon, but instead try to make sure they don't lose control of this vision in the Baron pit. So sealing away the scuttle will give them a little bit of knowledge, and of course you cannot sweep that one away. It's just a timer on its own. So Meiko, oh good, actually great scat of the week there. Catches out 3 members of EDG and forces the cleanse out of Viper, and this is now all of a sudden an opportunity here for WE to get some control back.
Yeah, they need to get the waves in order. That should be their priority right now. Breed's going to go and push in that top side, and they need to get bot. But the biggest issue is that, like, because you've so much more wave clear, you just win this brute force in the mid lane for EDG. It means that any time Shanks leaves this 5-man unit in the mid, EDG get control.
Well, good poke here from Flandre on this Jayce, bringing Elk and Missing both down to about 1/3 of their HP. And Scout's hunting. He's smelling blood right now and wants to try and finish this one off. He knows there's a very juicy meal waiting for him. And sadly for the side of TWE, yes, you got a summoner out of Viper, but I think you got to reset. I don't think you can fight for this dragon again.
Oh, flash forward.
Flash forward, Beishang does get caught out. Scout gonna have to be a little bit careful, but Beishang so close to dead. Not quite got the distance there on the accelerated shock blast, but again, turret mid, you go back, you get the dragon, you're now on 2 dragon now piece for either side. EDG does feel like they're more comfortable.
Yeah, Terror with a side of dragon, a classic at the Rift restaurant right now. And EDG are just eating up everything that they can. And WE can do nothing, right? Like, what do you actually try and do? You cannot get control of your waves because we already said EDG just hard win the shove. Do you try and play side lanes? Well, one, Shanks has to be mid lane, and Scout blows up everyone else who tries to push in a side lane. And then even when you go towards team fights, the further range that you have from Flandre, from Viper is causing you too many issues. You don't have any sort of real hard engage unless you get some miracle Moonlight Vigil or a miracle hook coming through from Missing. So what do you try and do? And Shanks now, he's in trouble.
He's in a lot of trouble. There's 2 solo laners there off one side. He's going to get his Banshees popped. Going to try and trade this one back onto Scout, but he goes back to the distortion. Flandre brings down the hammer, and that's a quick L kill for EDG. WE just don't look like they have an answer. They don't have anything to do. Like you said, there's just nothing they can do against this massive amount of just siege potential.
Yeah, and they're free to make these plays on the bottom side because they have the double TP. So even if you try and rush bar, even if you try and aggress onto this top lane inhibitor turret, Flandre and Scout just TP there and your whole play's done and dusted. So for EDG, they're very, very firmly in the driver's seat, and I like that they're not even trying to attempt this Baron, because that's the only way that maybe you could get a steal coming through from WE, makes these pushes so much more difficult, and would give WE the opportunity to get back in the game. So instead, they're like, no, we don't care. We're just going to keep playing through this mid and bot side of the map. We're going to keep up this pressure, and eventually, you're just going to find yourselves done and dusted.
Yeah, well, Meiko finds Beishang, and they do trade a couple of blows there as Baron control, or Baron vision control is the name of the game here for WE, and I feel like they're feeling the pressure right now. They're trying to force EDG into a 5v5, a front to back, something they can maybe look to try and utilize this Lucian, because right now, Breed getting the counter pick. Yes, he's level 17, fantastic for you, but he's been a bit invisible for the last 15 or so minutes.
Yeah, it just hasn't been the right pick for what EDG are going for. I honestly think that Kennen probably would have done a lot more here, where you can try and set up for these engages and fights with that Kennen pick, but right now, WE, they're trying to use the small bit of tempo they had off of the reset for EDG to force this Baron, but EDG, again, they've so much range here.
Yeah, they do. Scout, ooh, missing, almost gets the prediction there back, but you don't really have a front line to tank this one up here on the side of WE. You can't just brute force this one. You do not have the health bars to go for it, and I like the idea, but they recognize that it's probably just going to be a really bad one.
I mean, it still might be.
Oh, there was a ward there in that bush, and they're looking for the fight here for EDG. There's a chain of corruption. It landed onto Elk, so he cleanses it. Beishang, though, on negative HP from what I can see, and he's going to be forced all the way back into his base. That means with no jungler around, the smite steal not as prominent, and now WE, they don't really know where to go. They don't really know what to do.
Yeah, and there's very little, again, that they can actually try to look for an engage. This steal would be a miracle if it happened with no jungler.
You look for it there, but Shanks has already been bursted out. You can see even more bursts going on to Breed. You have to give it up. EDG playing this map so damn perfectly. Their composition just doing everything they wanted to do.
And it's kind of heartbreaking for WE as well, right? Because they were trading up in a lot of scenarios. They were doing the right things. They were keeping this gold lead so damn even with EDG, but they just don't have an answer against what EDG's comp brings to the table. Unfortunately, there's little to no engage for the range that both Varus and Jayce have. Your 1v1 in those side lanes all loses out now as well, apart from like Breed Flandre, but you've always got to be careful of scouts showing up. So I think for WE, it's definitely going to be back to the drawing board for this next series. Maybe this Lucian pick isn't what you want, especially when the LeBlanc has already gone over.
Yeah, so the next game, not next series. Only
Sorry,
game one, Dagda.
yes.
They've got plenty of time to figure out what they need to do. Don't be worried. I know it feels bad, but don't be worrying about it. We'll get them back. Don't worry, you know. Rest your weary little head as we look at the items now, looking back into this. You got 3 items into the mid lane. Almost got a death cap for Scout right now. He's just waiting on maybe about 500-600 gold, and he's going to be able to pick up that one. I will say you do have Elf with that Infinity Edge, but Infinity Edge ain't going to do nothing if you get half Elf and Accelerate Shock Blast. As we go in now straight away, we're going to see the Beishang going straight into stasis. The chain of corruption has been used. That's a good hook, forcing out the Ragnarok. But WE, they're just lacking engage. And like you said, yes, the Lucian is cool, but apart from a hook or maybe a really good scout of the week, they don't have any ways of starting a fight.
Yeah, and even when you do land a hook, you don't want Braum or Olaf. You want neither of these guys. You want something juicy. You want the big fish in the back, but it's just never hitting. You've got the wrong base, and they're just not pulling up any winners.
No, it's all red herrings for the side of WE. As we can see now, Shanks just gets double distorted on and back down to about half HP. Base now cracked open here for EDG as they continue down. Elk loses his Immortal Shield Bow passive and has to get himself back into base. EDG with this Baron buff are oppressive. They are suffocating WE back into their base. 2 inhibitor turrets down. My God, that damage! Shanks cannot stay around here. There's just too much poke. There's just too much siege. And WE, they're running out of options. Dagda, they gotta find something. They gotta find it now.
I mean, it's kind of looking done and dusted. WE now with backs against the wall, and EDG, they're not even beside them. They're so far back, they're hitting them from so far away.
Well, Nexus turrets that go in, the chain of corruption goes down. Missing uses the Mikhail's blessing on himself to get himself back out of this Breed, trying to clear these minions, but there's still got a bit of time on the Baron buff. Great, unbreakable here from Meiko. That skill has just been so key at keeping them alive. Beishang almost not joining that club, almost going into the Great Stream as it's missing, but Elf flies forward and gets himself 1 kill. That's the Varus dead. They're going to be able to get the stasis, but no! It's Scout bringing him down. Now it's a 3v3, as Beishang gets himself back onto the map. EDG got to be so careful. Flash away from Meiko. You can see Breathe, he wanted it, but he knows there's so much burst. They will survive for now, but it's just looking all EDG all the time.
The base is in ruins. How do you try and bring this one back? I mean, there's a top tower there that EDG can look to siege on. You got super minions mid and bot side. WE rushing for the dragon though, trying to see if they can steal this one away from EDG.
Well, Scout is still here. There wasn't any resets here for the side of EDG. Flandre, I don't know if he's on a ward or not. I don't think he is. I think that ward's just right outside of the bush. They're not exactly sure where he is. Dragon has been started. This will only be soul point for either of these teams. It would not be soul itself. There we go. We can see now pushing in. There's the third Drake. Flandre now finds himself on the backside. Flash forward, flash away. Great Scout of the week, but Scout is just too damn big. This LeBlanc is too damn fed, and there's just nothing you can do. WE get the dragon, but like you said, they're based in tatters. Without Breathe, without Beishang, can they defend?
It's 3v5. They struggled in the 5v5, and now you're asking an even more monumentous task from them. EDG are looking to close out the game.
They're looking to close this one out, get themselves 1-0 up in this best of 5. Missing his health bar. He will dodge out a little bit as Flandre takes a Scout of the week and unleash power to the face. But it's too little too late. There's nothing you can do. There's too much damage. There's too much to deal with. Viper picks up Shanks. Nexus turret number 2 falls. EDG take up game 1. They're going to pad their health bars and their KDAs just a little bit more. And they're going to be able to get themselves the advantage in this best of 5.
And EDG playing out their composition so well. Avoiding any of these objectives where maybe you can have WE make that miracle play, get this big 5v5 fight. Instead, they keep them at range. They use the siege potential that they have. And especially after getting that big Rift Herald play, literally at the 10-minute mark, they were then able to get Flandre unlocked and continue to put pressure everywhere on the map.
Yeah, and honestly, like you said in that game, is that the draft just didn't lend itself to what WE wanted to do. It didn't lend itself to how they wanted to play the game, and it meant that when they were looking for engages, when they were looking for those 5v5s, where are they going to find it? They needed a mistake from the EDG, and EDG never gave it to them.
Yeah, and I think it was just a really smart call from EDG, right? You look at the draft as it starts to come through. Thresh, Aphelios locked in on first rotation for WE. It meant that you're kind of forced to go for this very high dive composition or something that can try and enable this Aphelios, but EDG, they picture that perfectly. They go, right, we're going to go for the Olaf. He can play front line. He can keep people at bay by slowing them down and moving backwards. We take the Varus and also this Jayce to make sure we've got that range and more slows and distance engage coming through from this Braum. So even if you try to close the gap as WE, it's going to be a hard fought fight to even get close to EDG before you can deal damage.
Yeah, and honestly, EDG played this so perfectly. I feel like they just knew exactly how to do it. I think Scout had a phenomenal game on those side lanes. No one could deal with him. He just kept himself creeping in the shadows of the fog of war, and you just had to be always in the back of your mind, is he there? Is he not there? And it meant that because they were just swapping lanes, swapping sides so often, bot, top, mid, by the time you moved your vision to the top side, they were already moving a play bot side. So EDG just tearing WE apart in this game. And yes, it was a slow burner, but that's the kind of game EDG loves.
Yeah, and I mean, look, as you said, they played it perfectly. There's very little that you could actually do here as WE. And that's why, like we were saying, hey, look, avoiding things like the Baron, avoiding things like these dragons when it was going to be a fair fight. Because the only time you're ever vulnerable with this type of composition is when you're moving, well, at least against what WE had, is when you're moving over towards these objectives. Like maybe missing can find a hook, you end up with these nice flanks from Beishang, you find ways for WE to close the gap. And certainly WE's team fighting has been their strong suit. So when you go towards these objectives, you're kind of playing into that, but not giving them that opportunity, just playing out the map safe, and then only moving back to try and take these objectives after they've already hit these massive accelerated shot blasts. LeBlanc has popped someone's health bar. This is when you know you're safe and you have that numbers advantage to go for these big objectives.
Well, we'll see if EDG can continue the momentum or if WE have got something left up their sleeve. We're going to throw it to a quick break, and when we return, Game 2 picks it back.